Japan, the land of the rising sun, has long been considered an economic superpower with its high-tech innovations and booming industries. For years, as Japan tried to boost its chronically weak economic growth, it pursued what its central bank saw as a magic formula: stronger inflation and a weaker yen. However, recent data suggests that the country's economy is facing stagnation and decline. The once thriving economy seems to be crumbling with a shrinking population, a rising debt crisis, and a lack of new growth opportunities. Why has Japan's economy, once the envy of the world, fallen on such hard times, and why has recovery taken so long? In this video, we will explore the reasons behind Japan's economic stagnation and the potential consequences it could have on the country's future. Causes of Japan's economic stagnation. During the 1980s, Japan's economy was booming and proliferating. It was competing with the US to become the world's largest economy. However, in 1990, a massive asset bubble that had been growing for some time finally burst, leading to a sharp decline in Japan's economy. This marked the beginning of a challenging period for Japan called the Lost Decade, where the country faced stagnation and deflation, which continues to this day. Economists have analyzed the economic crisis in Japan from 1985 to 2000 and identified some underlying causes. One key factor is surplus and savings. Let's examine the economic situation in Japan. Japan has been known for its high savings and low consumption rates for many years. This savings surplus played a significant role in funding private industry through bank loans, which helped to create a robust infrastructure and establish Japan's position as a world-class manufacturing power. However, during the 1990s, this surplus became a structural obstacle, leading to a decline in demand and hindering Japan's economic recovery. Despite these challenges, Japan has a strong foundation of industrial infrastructure and a long history of innovation, which can help the country overcome these obstacles and continue to thrive in the long run. The economic stagnation in Japan can be attributed to two main reasons. Firstly, Japan's lack of population growth, and secondly, the political influence of the Liberal Democratic Party, or LDP, and of course, the vested interest groups. The LDP has received support from interest groups representing inefficient sectors of the Japanese economy, making it difficult for the government to implement the necessary reforms to revive the economy. The LDP has been more concerned with maintaining political power than implementing far-reaching reforms or addressing critical issues like non-performing loans or npls. Interest groups that support the LDP have lobbied hard to obstruct or weaken reforms measures. The prolonged economic downturn in Japan is primarily due to the absence of reasonable and far-sighted political leadership. The question remains whether Prime Minister Koizumi, who has been given a clear mandate to reform the outdated economic system, can successfully implement the necessary but politically challenging changes. Japan has been the victim of political mismanagement for decades. Unfortunately, the lack of political will and effective leadership led to severe policy mistakes. One such mistake was the consumption tax hike in 1997, which stifled nascent signs of recovery. Moreover, the unparalleled slowness in disposing of npls and the heavy-handed reliance on interest rate cuts from 1985 to 1987 to deal with the deflationary impact of the sharp appreciation of the yen following the Plaza Accord also added to the problem. Although we cannot blame the bubble, asset deflation, and the liquidity trap solely on Japan's politicians and policymakers, it is accurate to say that policy mismanagement has aggravated the problems and prolonged the recovery process. Moreover, the close relationship between Japan's economic bureaucracies and the corporations under their regulatory jurisdiction has contributed to Japan's problems. The interests of the Banking Bureau of MOF and the banking industry are interdependent. There needs to be more transparency and public accountability. The old methods of crisis mismanagement prevailed, and the government took a long time to deal with the massive hemorrhaging of Japan's financial system. The problems of non-transparency and weak accountability have remained despite progress towards developing a more transparent, rules-based system. The long-term appreciation of yen relative to the dollar has been a significant underlying cause of the bubble, sustained asset deflation, and the liquidity trap. Japan has been struggling with this chronic problem for years. The exchange rate factors have limited the effectiveness of specific policy tools, which could have helped clean up Japan's financial mess. The country is caught in a classic liquidity trap, where designing monetary policy to hit specific inflation targets would be challenging. A sudden, sharp devaluation of the yen would put enormous pressure on South Korea and Taiwan to devalue their currencies. In the era of global capital flows, the constant national need to adjust the value of key currencies and the cost of overshooting, misalignment, and potential speculative attack have complicated domestic macroeconomic management. Japan experienced rapid economic growth from 1955 to 1957, which continued steadily until 1991. This growth can be attributed to the global expansion of trade. However, Japan has benefited less from the globalization of capital flows than trade liberalization. Its public and private sectors have yet to be able to handle the liberalization of capital movements as effectively as they have managed the trade liberalization. This has resulted in lower returns on Japan's substantial dollar assets abroad. The Asian financial crisis between 1997 and 1998 severely impacted the country's efforts to recover from its economic stagnation. Japanese manufacturing industries were better equipped to take advantage of the globalization of trade than Japanese financial institutions or access to opportunities created by the globalization of capital flows. Can Japan recover from severe recession? Experts and economists in Japan are encouragingly optimistic about the country's recovery from the ongoing economic recession. However, overcoming this challenge requires Japan to take crucial measures to boost its stagnant economy. Structural reforms are necessary to tackle the root causes of the economic decline. It is essential to break the chains of vested interest that have obstructed progress in the past. Addressing regulatory barriers and restrictions on competition is also of utmost importance as they pose a significant hurdle to growth. By fostering greater competition and innovation, Japan can create new growth opportunities and reduce its dependence on traditional sectors that have remained stagnant for years. Japan must implement a more proactive fiscal policy to stimulate demand and boost growth. The government can increase spending on infrastructure, education, and social welfare, which can help create jobs and stimulate the economy. Moreover, Japan can adopt a more flexible fiscal policy responding to short-term economic fluctuations. Japan's aging population and low birth rate also call for a reassessment of social welfare policies to ensure long-term sustainability. Japan's monetary policy has been accommodative for years, with the central bank implementing a zero interest rate policy and quantitative easing. However, these policy tools have reached their limits, and Japan needs to adopt more creative monetary policy measures. For example, Japan can consider implementing a hostile interest rate policy or increasing its purchases of corporate bonds and exchange-traded funds. These measures can help support the economy and stimulate demand. Japan's rich history of innovation holds the key to unlocking the country's new growth opportunities. The government must take action and invest in research and development while encouraging entrepreneurship. By leveraging its technological expertise to create new industries and products, Japan can drive growth and reduce its dependence on traditional sectors. By fostering a culture of innovation, Japan can pave the way for a brighter and more prosperous future. Japan must establish more free trade agreements and boost foreign direct investment to achieve this goal. Additionally, Japan should adopt a more global and outward-looking approach, embracing the opportunities presented by globalization. By doing so, Japan can unlock new growth potential and reduce its dependence on domestic demand. What could be the long-term consequences if Japan remains in a state of stagnation indefinitely? Japan's continued economic stagnation could have significant long-term consequences, particularly for its aging population. With an increasing number of elderly citizens and a declining birth rate, the country could face a significant shortage of workers, impacting productivity and economic growth. This, in turn, could have a ripple effect on the overall economy, leading to a decrease in living standards and a rise in poverty. Furthermore, Japan's stagnant economy could make competing with other nations in the global marketplace challenging, which could hurt trade and foreign relations. Japan must take immediate steps to address its economic challenges and promote sustained growth to avoid these potential consequences. In conclusion, Japan's economic superpower faces a significant challenge with stagnation. While the country has managed to maintain its status as one of the world's largest economies, there needs to be more growth and more innovation. With an aging population, a shrinking workforce, and a mounting debt burden, it is imperative for Japan to take concrete steps to address these issues. Only time will tell whether the Japanese government and business community can rise to the challenge and revitalize the country's economy. However, one thing is clear: the fate of Japan's economy will have far-reaching implications for the global economic landscape.